Are we good to go?
I think
we're good to go. All right, everybody.
everybody.
How's everybody doing? Good to have you here with us. A geopolitics in conflict show. We're so excited to be here.
Oh no.
Oh, good. Your cell phone is working. That's fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. And
Good.
there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. And
I'm doing better.
David,
I'm doing better because I had my coffee.
I have my coffee too.
Oh, that's your coffee. Oh, interesting. So I had coffee at home. Cold coffee, is that what it is?
It is. It's iced coffee.
Now, would you believe that I never had iced coffee in my life?
No way.
Yeah.
I think you're missing out, guys. If you like iced coffee,
no,
put it in the
oh,
chat.
don't go for it. Go for traditional coffee. Actually, I'm thinking one day, believe it or not, what would you guys? Would you like to see me how I prepare my coffee at home?
Yes.
Maybe we'll do that one day. I'll do it just for the video. Usually,
you know what? We
I'm
have
a
an
bit.
Instagram.
I know, but I'm a private guy.
I
like
know.
my privacy, but I don't mind sharing with our viewers. Really, the steps how I make coffee.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
And guys, if you want to see that, we have an Instagram. So I think it's this one. Here we go. We have an Instagram, geopolitics it's at geopolitics and conflict. David has a Twitter at Diwalalu, and we have a TikTok. We actually now have a Threads also. We just started a Threads. So if you guys want to follow us on Threads, check it out. And our TikTok is at geopolitics and conflict. So we actually have a full,
Oh, that's it. I'll do it. We'll do it. We'll do it.
Guys, if you want to see David make his coffee, which is kind of like a work of art, it's going to go up on our Instagram.
Perfect.
We're going to do Instagram stories where we show you doing your
Actually,
coffee.
That's a good idea. Why not? Let
Yeah.
you just start sharing somehow, or we just like everybody else. We live like every normal life. How about we just start sharing some?
Would you guys like to know a little bit more about us?
Yeah,
I mean,
why not?
You see us all
for
the
it.
time.
I'm for it. Sometimes it's nice to stay away from geopolitics.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
But today we're gonna have to talk about what's at the heart of geopolitics.
Oh, God, some crazy
what's at the heart of it?
on.
Yeah. Before we launch into this, what are we have for tomorrow? By the way,
tomorrow, you guys, we have something very, very special, and that is Scott Ritter. We are doing an interview with Scott Ritter. Is it live or is it recorded?
It will be live conversation.
I'll
have an in-depth. Do you know that we both of us from the military intelligence, except that he was in the Marines, I was in the Army.
My fiance was a Marine.
There we go.
So we have a full.
Well, maybe we have a military all get together.
You know what? That would be great. The thing is, if you've been in the military, you have a different perspective on war and conflict than everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think it's really critical to hear the perspective of people who have actually been in conflict.
That is true. Let alone Scott Ritter.
Right.
It's someone I trust, and I usually don't say this lightly.
Scott Ritter is very impressive.
I trust the guy. He knows what he's talking about. So we're excited to have him.
So noon Central Time tomorrow, guys. Scott Ritter.
Correct. Yeah. And also we're going to be lining up something with Einar Tengen. I'm going to reach out to him and we go from there. So let's talk about our topic because there are more than one involved in one topic.
Okay. So we're going to talk. So, our shows now, we want to bring you more than one.
Yeah.
We want to bring you more than one topic because so much is going on that we feel that we had to expand what we're talking about and what we're bringing you guys.
Indeed.
So the first one that we're talking about today is Zelensky's being very hot-headed. And it's interesting to watch because there's a sense of lack of gratitude and a sense of being completely okay with pushing the entire world into World War III. Not even thinking about it.
What did he think? That shows you how the Canadian President Zelensky lacking depth in understanding what global affairs or geopolitics or international relations, whatever term you want to use, is all about.
Right.
You will think he will be learning from history.
Right.
What am I referring to here? I'm referring to his neighboring country of Georgia.
Yes.
It's exact pattern. And back then, you know what NATO said to Georgia? At that time, it used to be Mikhail Saakashvili.
Yeah.
And Saakashvili, by the way, was educated in the US. We're the one who put him in power there. So when the eruption started in Abkhazia, that's where it all started, NATO was telling Mikhail Saakashvili, oh, just go for it. Fight the Russians. We will support you.
Right.
What did Saakashvili do? Because I did the research on it, I wrote it in the book.
Yeah.
So he went ahead and wanted to start attacking the Russian-speaking communities in Abkhazia and South Ossetia. The first shot was fired from the Russians toward. He reached out to NATO. Saakashvili, and said, he said, well, are you guys coming to defend me? NATO said, are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
Do you want us to fight a nuclear Russia?
Right.
You must be out of your mind.
Right.
It took Russia 3 days.
Yep.
Took over. And he had to get his tail between his legs, as we say, because the defeat for the Georgian was so fast in 3 days.
Well, and of course it was. So actually, it's very interesting that you bring up that. So I was going to go into our other topics, but this is so fiery.
Yeah, let's do that, and we'll jump into the others.
So there's a couple of pieces to this, and one is what you just brought up. So I'm going to share my screen because this piece of okay, so this is a classified 2008 classified cable. I mean, it's unclassified now, or it's leaked now.
Yeah.
From the then American ambassador to Russia, William Burns. Okay, so this is very interesting. So I'm going to share this. We found this on Twitter of all places. So Twitter is actually a very interesting place to find, to find some of the really good research that other people have done. So let me share this communique. Let's share it. Okay. So this is Thomas Fazzi. I don't know a ton about him, but listen to this. So Russian opposition, neuralgic and concrete. Number 5, Ukraine and Georgia's NATO aspirations. So this is from 2008.
Yeah.
NATO's aspirations not only touch a raw nerve in Russia, they engender serious concerns about the consequences for stability in the region. Not only does Russia's perceived encirclement and efforts to undermine Russia's influence in the region, but it also fears unpredictable and uncontrolled consequences, which would seriously affect Russian security interest. Experts tell us that Russia is particularly worried that the strong divisions in Ukraine over NATO membership, 2008, remember, with much of ethnic Russian community against membership, could lead to a major split involving violence or, at worst, civil war. In that eventuality, Russia would have to decide whether to intervene, a decision Russia does not want to have to face. So that's a very interesting communique, I guess. I don't know what to call that, leaked communication, but it is in 2008 talking about sort of what we're talking about here, which is Ukraine joining NATO. And I think it's exactly what you're talking about, David. Georgia had the same aspirations, and a very similar thing is happening to Ukraine right now, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure.
So would you like to see the tweet that Zelensky put out, the seething tweet that he put out en route to Lithuania for the NATO summit?
All right, let's see that.
All right, let's see. I'm going to share it, guys. All right, so this is straight from Zelensky. Can you see it, David, or do you want me to read it?
No, you can read it.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it.
I know it's kind of small text, so maybe I'll try and make it bigger for you guys.
No, that's right. Yeah.
All right, so this is kind of what started the heat. This is from Zelensky's Twitter, right? Like you guys can see it. It's from Zelensky's Twitter. We value our allies. We value our shared security, and we always appreciate an open conversation. Ukraine will be represented at the NATO summit in Vilnius because it is about respect. Interesting, right? But Ukraine also deserves respect. Now on the way to Vilnius, we receive signals that certain wording is being discussed without Ukraine. Interesting.
Yeah.
What right does Ukraine have?
He doesn't know. He's a comedian. The
And
guy's comedian doesn't understand this kind of
Right.
stuff.
No, and I think that's very, very true. And I would like to emphasize that this wording is about the invitation to become NATO member, not about Ukraine's membership. It's unprecedented and absurd when time frame is not set neither for the invitation nor for Ukraine's membership. This is really key right here. Well, at the same time, vague wording about conditions is added even for inviting Ukraine. It seems there is no readiness neither to invite Ukraine to NATO nor to make it a member of the alliance. This means that a window of opportunity is being left to bargain Ukraine's membership in NATO in negotiations with Russia. And for Russia, this means motivation to continue its terror. Uncertainty is weakness. And I will openly discuss this at the summit. To me, this doesn't feel like uncertainty at their part.
Yeah, he doesn't know. He doesn't know.
It feels like they just don't want it.
They can't. That's the short answer. They can't.
Of course they can't. Of course they can't. Because if they did, what would happen?
It's a red line for Russians. So that is the reason why. So I just put this image here for the comedian president.
Put it back up really quick. Let's take a look at it because he's in that picture.
Yeah, because I read up on the. I'm sorry, the other one.
Oh no, you're fine.
Oh, hold on. Yeah, right here. No,
it's one of these.
It's right here. This one, right there.
Okay, let's see it. Yeah.
So, what's interesting about this is who's in the picture. So, who do you see on the picture?
All right, so we have.
You got France, Italy, Canada, France, Canada, Italy. The European representative, and of course, U.S. president, and the Canadian President Zelensky. Well, the idea that for them to be thinking, for him to be thinking, meaning comedian Z, for him to be thinking that he was hoping that's gonna be the conversation about admission. That's what it was. The NATO summit in itself ended now without Ukraine becoming a member, and it won't. It will never, because that's a red line for Russia. NATO understands. And even now with France declaring that they might end up sending long-range missiles, Russia already came up and said, you know what? We consider that a threat to our security. Why do you think Lavrov said that?
Well, first of all, I think because it is.
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah, but also because that's how they activate their nuclear doctrine.
Yeah.
Russia has in its doctrine, and I intend to discuss this in detail tomorrow with Scott, because he knows a little bit. He knows more about this.
Yeah.
It's because Russia, in its doctrine for nuclear use, is if there is even a threat to its security, it will deploy tactical nuclear weapons. So that is the reason why Lavrov said what he said. So the question that we need to ask is, what did Ukraine get out of NATO? I mean, when you look at a picture like that, this one right here.
Yeah.
No. When you look at a picture like this, when you look at another picture like this one here, which is very humiliating.
Oh, it's so
This is a very humiliating. So that's another word of saying, shut up, we'll decide for you. You know, that's again gives me an idea. Comedian Z is not well equipped to understand the depth of geopolitics. He's a comedian. What would you expect? So the question becomes for Ukraine, is Ukraine now, which I don't think so, waking up to the reality? For him to be now this harsh, they just shrug their shoulder. NATO, just shrug their shoulders. Because NATO has one objective and one objective only, to prolong the war.
Yeah.
Now, that leaves us with another key question. What will Russia do?
Right. And that's honestly a very scary question. And speaking to exactly what you just said, David, one of the other topics, this is kind of one topic really. And then we're going to do another topic in later. And that one's a really juicy one, guys. So later in this show, we're going to talk about China's warning to NATO to not expand into Asia. But so stay tuned, stay on the show, and we'll talk about that after this. But one of the very interesting things that's happening, so Trudeau is doubling troops in Latvia.
Oh, you mean dictator Trudeau?
Yes.
Oh,
okay. Who is on that picture also.
Yeah,
right?
it's
there he is. Right next to Zelensky, I think.
No, hold on. Yes, he is.
Yep.
That's dictator Trudeau right there. Yeah. So as I said earlier, just to go back before you continuing your point here, if you see who's in a picture, you got the weak, incompetent Olaf Scholz. You got the sleazy Macron.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't even recognize this individual here from this distance here. Then you got, of course, our Uncle Joe. Then you
Mhm.
got comedian Z. Then you got dictator Trudeau. Then you got the flip flopper Georgina.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
She
you
did flip
got,
flop.
this is
Yep.
what's his name? Michel. He's the representative also for the EU. Then you got the commissioner of the EU, which, by the
Yeah.
way, her case with the bribe from Pfizer was swept under the rug.
Yeah.
But there is one key for her why she's in a picture.
Why?
Why do you think she's in picture? Can anybody guess? Can you guys guess? Can you type on the chat room why she was in a picture?
That's a great question. Yeah, guys, let us know. Why do you think
Yeah.
she's in the picture?
Yeah. How about if we give them a few?
I think we're gonna have
minutes?
to give them a few minutes.
Because it takes a while to get there. So the idea of the what was I saying before that? So the idea for Ukraine now to be thinking in terms of
Yeah.
because it's a logical question. What did Ukraine gain out of? It was all the hoplala
Right.
about Ukraine. We're gonna talk. They didn't even talk about the threat to the nuclear power plant in Zaporizhzhia.
Yeah.
They didn't even talk about that.
Which Putin told them to talk about that.
Which shows you where the priorities are.
Right.
And again, for me as a geopolitical analyst,
Yeah.
it gives me great confidence to say that the objective is to prolong the war.
So speaking to that, this is very interesting, David.
Yeah.
So this is from the CBC. So Canada, so I'm quoting from the CBC, Canada plans to more than double the size of its contribution to a NATO mission in Latvia by adding 1,200 military personnel, so 1,200 military personnel to its contingent there. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced on Monday. It'll be, okay, listen to this. It'll be a gradual deployment of troops and some new equipment to create a persistent presence in the Baltic country. Canada has roughly 1,000 soldiers deployed to Latvia right now, which is not very many, quite frankly. With the extra forces, including 15 Leopard, 2 A4M tanks, the contingent will swell to 2,200 over the next few years.
Yeah.
Full deployment won't be complete until 2026.
Uh-huh.
The Liberal government has earmarked $2.6 billion for the deployment over 3 years, but it's tapping into previously announced funds from the 2022 federal budget, $1.4 billion to pay for it. Here's what this says to me. Exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They have plans to fully deploy during the time until 2026.
Yeah, because that's the intention of NATO, is to extend the conflict of Ukraine. And by the time we get closer to concluding that chapter, they'll change direction to Asia, which we will get into that later.
Also,
but the idea of the nature of the weapons that's going on based on what they say. Remember, there's one thing with NATO you have to always understand. What NATO says publicly versus what it does privately.
Right.
They are never the same. And there is a reason to that. Because in a military setting like this, NATO will have to project the idea of unity when there is none, let alone. I looked at the charts. I wish I could have kept it, for how many countries are contributing to. They're only about 17 countries contributing to NATO's budget. That's it. And how many members in NATO?
Right.
There are 32.
And primarily
31 rather.
Who is contributing?
The US at the top.
Yeah.
US at the top. So the idea for them to be thinking NATO, or for French president's statement that we're going to be sending long range, let alone the US, we're talking about F-16s.
Yeah.
That's why Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said what he said, is because anytime Russia mentioned the word, we will consider that as a threat to our security, which means the whole Russian Federation, because that's how they can activate the doctrine for usage of nuclear weapons. So the fair question to ask, are we on the verge of a nuclear exchange here?
Well, and I think that that's maybe what happened here is Zelensky calling for and so hot-headedly calling for Ukraine to join NATO.
Yeah.
And for a time frame for Ukraine to join NATO. How does he not see what that turns into?
No.
Because a hot war with a nuclear power, everyone loses that
Yeah.
situation.
It's not he doesn't see it. He doesn't understand the depth of
Yeah.
it. He doesn't understand the depth of. Yeah, otherwise, you would have learned from history as far what happened to
Right.
Georgia. Do you hear anything about Georgia now?
Nope.
No,
you
that's
sure
it. It's
do
over.
not. Yep.
Because Georgia was also a red line for Russia,
Yeah.
and they made it clear. And NATO just pushed Mikhail Saakashvili, the idiot guy, who was another idiot
Yeah.
too. He was educated here in the U.S. and it's kind of like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm not saying, they should be afraid or scared of Russia. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
All I'm saying is Russians, in this case, the government, doesn't bluff.
Yeah.
This is not us.
Yeah.
Because we tend to bluff.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a quick example.
Absolutely.
What
yeah.
did we say back in Syria when President Obama or Obama was president? I don't like to use the term president, by the way, when someone leaves office.
Yeah.
Why are we doing that? Do you know
Former
why?
President?
Yeah, you know why? Because we're still with that mindset of the Brits.
Yeah.
Once you're done your service, that's it. So when Obama was in power in 2008, he said that, the usage of chemical in Syria will be a red line. What did we do? We back down from that.
Yeah.
So Russians tends not to do that. North Koreans tends not to do that. They just tested a ballistic missile yesterday as a response to the US. So that's why we never dare to consider attacking North Korea, whatever, because we know what's going to happen.
Right.
So for Russians, they're not going to be bluffing. They are not bluffing about Ukraine either. That's a red line.
I believe that.
NATO understands. And if NATO gets involved in a war with Russia, we all know what it means.
Yeah.
Russia has the means.
Yeah.
It has the means to obliterate the entire Europe in no time.
Yeah, in no time.
Yeah, and they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Because the narrative has always been, Russia wants to dominate Europe. They're not interested in.
Right.
They're not.
They seem interested in defense. Honestly, like that's, and I'm not pro Russia. I'm not any of that stuff. I'm not pro anybody, really. It's not about being pro or con. It's about looking at the facts, not the narrative, not the constructed narrative, but the actual facts of the situation.
Yeah. And well, it's because it's security. It matters. A decent head of state will be thinking about the welfare of his country.
Yeah.
I look at it just with a quick example, with even a NATO member, Hungary. The Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, he just blocked EU financing for Ukraine for next year. And he's like, no.
Yeah.
Because why? And his argument, which is a logical one, why will he put the welfare of a Ukrainian before his own people?
Right.
That's what a decent leader will do.
Right.
All he's saying is, no, I'm not going to agree to that.
Yeah.
And rightly so. Now, do we see any other leader in Europe taking stand?
Not really.
None. And yet he is a NATO member. But as a matter of fact, there was a reason why I brought this up, because I have a picture here. Assuming I do, but maybe I don't.
I think you do.
Yeah, no, it's not here. It was a picture of all members, all NATO lands. And you can just see who's standing in front, second row, third row. And Orban was at third way.
Yeah.
Georgina was way at the end, on a far left.
You don't really hear much about her anymore.
No, that's it. Because her true color came up when she decided to withdraw from the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative.
Yeah.
Which she was pressured to do that. I mean, they're going to find out. They're going to pay the price for that, because BRI is going to succeed.
And that's the thing.
It's
BRI
going
is going to succeed.
It's going to succeed.
Whether you're part of it or not. And I'm not even saying it's the right or wrong thing. It just is going to succeed.
I do lean towards being the right thing.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because countries will benefit economically.
Trade routes
China,
are very important. Yeah.
China is not putting a gun on their heads and said, no, you need to be part of that.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, when Italy declared that it will withdraw, China said, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
But
they'll find another route.
but they're going to be losing economically.
Right.
Big time.
Right.
Big time. This is why China is in Africa. There is a reason for that.
Yeah.
Remember a couple of years ago, we're talking about when that company was asking about how can we get gas to Europe? And it was
Yeah.
before Ukraine issue, whatever. And what did I say back then? I said, if they can get a pipeline through the Red Sea in Egypt, Libya, all the way up through the Mediterranean into Europe, it'll be feasible. Any company will do that, will benefit.
Yeah.
Well, Italy, why did they subscribe? Why did they join the BRI to begin with? Because of the projects on the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
Now they shot themselves in the foot. So this is what I'm saying for Europeans to think in terms of, like, to go back to the case of Orban. That's the reason taking stand.
Yeah.
Even for this NATO craziness, this nothing but a hypes.
Yeah.
This is nothing but a hypes. They know they cannot and they will not cross the red line for Russia. Ukraine is the red line.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I do predict, and I don't want to say this now because I want to keep it for a conversation with Scott.
Yeah.
I do predict that Russia will take over certain more regions for good.
Well, and I honestly, after this, I think that NATO might let them. And I think let them, right?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Because this is getting hotter. And the one thing that this shows me is that I feel that if NATO was very confident that Russia would back down, or they could take over Russia easily, or they could defeat Russia easily, they would have handled this very differently.
Yeah.
But to me, this seems like perhaps the first real indication that NATO is not confident that this would not go south very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't know whether they anticipated being at this point at this time, but it seems that they are very much not willing, because they know that this would deteriorate very fast.
I do think they did anticipate that.
Okay.
You know why? You know why I'm saying this?
Yes,
it's because when Russia provided the 12 talking points for security, NATO didn't even respond to that, didn't even acknowledge that.
Yeah.
That tells me right there, you have no intentions of really resolving. This is no different than how we are conducting our foreign policy towards China.
Yeah.
Because we are doing two things.
Yeah.
Here we are sending officials to China, but on the other hand, we are still undermining and creating tensions, which means we have no intention whatsoever to really sit down and negotiate with the Chinese on an equal footing.
Right.
That's exactly the behavior I've been noticing from NATO, and I think they are realizing that and they are seeing it.
Yeah.
So they know now, we've gone too far, too late now.
Yes. Yeah.
Because any retreat from them will be interpreted as a defeat.
As a defeat. You're absolutely
simple
right.
as it is. They won't
right.
want. So what's left? What options left?
Yeah.
Drag on the conflict.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
I mean, I've seen the same scenario took place in Afghanistan and Iraq. We could have withdrawn way before.
Yeah.
But because of the notion how it's going to be perceived, here is a superpower, couldn't defeat some homies with some AK-47 from 1960s.
Right.
And yet they end up the one driving us out.
Right.
So we end up having to leave. That's the same scenario I see with NATO.
Yeah.
And NATO will not want, but the only option left for them now is keep dragging it slowly.
Yeah.
So, and this is where we'll pivot into our second topic about Canada, why Canada is sending that stuff.
Well, hold on. I want to show a picture of Zelensky first.
But first, we want to say thank you to...
Oh, yeah. We have a couple of these,
Yeah,
actually.
We want to say...
Do you want to do it?
No, you do it. You do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
you have better eyes than me.
Osiris the Great, thank you very much. We see you every time. Thank you so much for being with us. And then we have Route 55 Qatar. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We appreciate your support, guys. We
all
do
of
this
you.
show for you. We're a small crew, but we do it for you guys. So thank you. Thank you
and for that person
contributing.
who said we have to figure out the sound, would you please put $4,000 on the table? Because that's how much it costs per month for a sound technician. We will greatly appreciate it if you could.
So I want to show this photo of Zelensky because there's something about optics that's just, so this picture has been floating around the internet, and there's a couple of, let me see, did it show up? There it is. Oh, add to stream. There you go. So this is from the Babylon Bee because I thought this was hilarious. The title that they put, "Embarrassed Man Could Have Sworn Invitations at Costume Party." And so this is a picture of Zelensky. And, look at all of the other leaders. And there he is just kind of standing by himself, kind of lost. But, this right here, looking at this picture, like I said, the Babylon Bee, that's hilarious. The Babylon Bee is a fake site. It's a fake news site.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a satire. It's a satire site. Some of their stuff is really, really funny. So, but this image and all the images actually that you've shown, David, today, this is such a stark difference from, remember when all the celebrities were going to Ukraine?
Oh yeah.
Remember when all of the politicians were saying, we will we'll defend Ukraine's democracy to the end? And look at this image. And there's a bunch of them like this. This isn't the only one.
Yeah.
Where over the course of this meeting, basically they were like, chill out, chill out, chill out. They're not beating the war drum. They may be sending these troops, but even looking at Canada, which we're about to dive into, even looking at that, they're not sending that many troops, right?
No.
And so I want to highlight the shift in the narrative that has happened here.
Yeah.
Because this may be the biggest thing that came out of this summit. Is not a lot actually came out of this summit, because most of the thing, pretty much Ukraine was the thing on the docket, more or less. But that had been decided before anybody even got there. When Biden said, we are not admitting Ukraine, and there's a bunch of stuff that Ukraine has to do before we're even going to consider it, because we're not getting into a hot war with Russia. That was decided before they even got here. And so, you see later on, Zelensky goes up and he's like, during his press conferences and speeches, and he's like, no, I am actually really grateful for all the support and billions of dollars and weapons you've given us. To me, this is wild. And, he is the only guy not wearing professional attire. He's never done it. And if you look at actors, he does look to me like he's playing a role. He's playing the role where he, there's no reason for him to be wearing this. He could be wearing a suit. And a lot of people brought it up early on. And the people who brought that up early on, people got mad at them and they were like, well, he's in a war zone. He is not in a war zone right here. He is standing with other politicians, professionals.
It's for sure. But again, he's a comedian. So I kind of find it very hilarious when there's a lot of time spent on addressing what Zelensky's doing when the guy doesn't know.
No, he doesn't.
Poor guy, he doesn't know. So let's shift to our Canada's sending. So the first of all, because where do you start with the dictator Prime Minister Trudeau? Let alone that most of the people do not know that Canada has passed legislation. I mean, when I say Canada, I'm referring to the Trudeau administration that was going to limit the role of social media. The reason they want to limit the social media, so this way it will be no counter arguments, which means it will be only what the Canadian government or Trudeau's government, for that matter, wants people to consume. Now, what comes with that? I remember when I was a kid, Canada was almost like the hallmark of freedom. I mean, it was held at an upper echelon per a nice, decent country and all that stuff. So with this action that the legislation in Canada is taking, or I shouldn't say Canada, I say the Trudeau government. Because there are members in parliament against it. What they are going with, this is going to isolate now Canada. And second thing is what's going to be happening to the Canada freedom.
That's
freedom
a
of
fantastic
expression.
question.
It's because Canadians are very nice people. I was in Canada last week.
Oh, very nice people.
Very decent, wonderful people. They'll take the coat out of their back and give it to you. That's how nice they are. But don't underestimate that. If they get mad and angry, you will see it. So it's just normal human behavior. So for Canada, for Prime Minister Dictator Trudeau to be embarking on that, that's but now to tie it to this weapon to
the sending
to Latvia.
Troops, to Latvia.
Anytime, I'll tell you this based on experience. and knowing what I know, I was inside the government.
Uh-huh.
So anytime Canada embarks on an initiative like this, it has already received the green light from the United States.
I believe that completely.
Because even till today,
Yeah.
Canada and UK and Australia and Germany, there's 4.
Yeah.
We never embark on any policy without getting the green light from Washington.
I believe you completely.
So,
I believe that completely.
And that's basically is the US that win it through the back door through Canada. Because how else would you explain NATO's decision as far as not admitting Ukraine, but extending, because it will be more sale of weapons, of course. How would you explain us propping up the Polish military?
You know, I actually have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because this seems a little outrageous to me. So if you guys are just joining this, I said this a little bit earlier, but Canada is basically over until 2026. Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm going to read this again for those of you just joining us. Because there's some stuff to me that feels a little bit off.
Mhm.
Okay. There's a lot about this that feels off to me. The first is how long they're intending to take. Okay. So this is from the CBC. Canada plans to more than double the size of its contribution to a NATO mission in Latvia by adding 1,200 military personnel to its contingent there. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced on Monday. First of all, is that really that many troops? No, it's not. It will be a gradual deployment of troops and some new equipment to create a persistent presence in the Baltic country. Canada has roughly 1,000 soldiers deployed to Latvia right now. Is that many?
Yeah.
With extra forces, including 15 Leopard 2 A4M tanks, the contingent will swell, so says the CDC, or sorry, not the CDC, the CBC.
CBC, yeah.
The contingent will swell to 2,200 over the next few years. So there's 2 pieces of that. The full deployment won't be complete until 2026. So there's 2 pieces of that. The first is will swell to 2,200. That doesn't seem like does that seem like a swell to you, first of all? And over the next few years, the full deployment won't be completed until 2026. Okay, so we'll dive into that in a second. But the Liberal government has earmarked $2.6 billion for the deployment over 3 years. Does it cost $2.6 billion to send 15 tanks and 2,000 and an extra 1,000 soldiers?
No.
Is $2.6 billion an appropriate number for that? I mean, I know there's inflation, guys. Like I get inflation's pretty bad. Yeah. But am I the only one who thinks that's kind of a ridiculous number?
Well, that's what the government of Trudeau's been doing. So let alone where the information came from. CBS is the mouth.
Oh, CBC.
CBC, I'm sorry, is the mouthpiece for the Trudeau government.
But am I wrong, David?
No,
it's not. $2.6 billion for 2,200 people and 15 tanks?
No, but this is why I'm saying is the back door of the US. Right. It's because you're going to have to think in terms of Canadian manufacturer, weapons manufacturer, or, it's like us. They do have certain key players in the military industrial, as far as weaponry and so forth. So they're going to have their share of the pie, shall we say.
Apparently.
That's how it works. But anytime Canada will embark on something like this, mark my word, this is bring back to memory the arrest of Meng Wanzhou. Remember her? The one from Huawei? Why will Canada even embark on arresting somebody?
That's a good question.
It makes it's right there. Canada also doesn't have a sovereign. I'll say it. I don't shy away from that. I mean, if you're still seeing on their bills the image of the Queen, that tells you right there. That's Canada, Australia, UK. Those 3, and Germany, the 4th. They just falling. Oh, we gotta say thank you to here.
Let's get it.
I can see
you
it.
Got
right.
it?
Yeah. That's KL, right? Yeah.
It's good to see you, KL.
Thank you, KL. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
So
it tells you right there. So the idea is you think about this within the context of us propping up Poland.
Yeah.
So why all of a sudden Germany will be doing this? I'm sorry, Canada will be doing that. Then within that, you take into consideration Germany's opposition to even considering Ukraine for the
Yeah. Oh,
discussion
yeah.
for being admitted. But
Yeah.
but the focus for us is about Canada.
Yeah.
So this is where I see the trajectory headed, again using history as my guide, and I intend to discuss this in detail
Yeah.
tomorrow with Scott, is the idea of what the policy or foreign policy of the United States back in the 70s was at that
Yeah.
time, and who that and by whom that foreign policy was directed and guided.
Yeah.
None other than Brzezinski,
Yes.
who is a Polish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back then, the argument was you're gonna have to paint the image of this evil
Right.
USSR, Soviet
Right.
Union, evil,
Right.
because that's how you sell the narrative. So, and it was any form of conversation with the Soviet Union back then, it was always pushed back by Brzezinski.
Yeah.
Because he was the national security advisor.
Yeah.
The way it works in our governments is the national security advisor usually have the ear of the president.
Mhm.
Even though you have the National Security Council, those are the principles in it, but the head of the National Security Advisor is almost the figurehead for that, the top boss.
Yeah.
But the president always has his ear, so he or she has the last word.
Mhm.
So Brzezinski at that time was pushing that narrative. No, you're gonna have to fight the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Now, and how did we do that? It's by also propping up the Eastern Bloc at the time, because remember, Poland,
which is what's happening.
Yeah, but who's doing it right now?
Yeah,
is his son, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Brzezinski.
Legacy politics seems like it should be done away with.
Yeah, well, you think about also his sister,
Mhm.
Mika. Have you ever listened to her?
No, I've never have.
Yeah, she's another
she
mouthpiece
also-
for the government. So
Yeah, legacy politics.
yeah. I don't listen to American news, period.
Oh, yeah,
So the point is that Mark, the ambassador, Mark Brzezinski, the current ambassador of the US in Poland,
Mhm.
is the one pushing that narrative.
Yeah.
And his argument was, through the US government, of course, the Biden administration, is that we need to strengthen Poland. What are we going to do? We're going to be selling them tanks.
Yeah.
We're going to upgrade their military. Some European countries are not happy about that.
Of course.
Among them is Germany.
Yeah.
Because what are they seeing? They're seeing that if the Polish military becomes so strong,
Mhm.
that's going to tip the balance.
Yeah.
This is where Canada comes in with this plan. And in none other than Latvia. What those Eastern countries contribute to NATO to begin with?
Not a lot.
No.
You know what they contribute, David?
Yeah.
They contribute position to Russia.
The proximity.
Proximity to
you're
Russia.
Right. Yeah.
That's exactly what they contribute.
But this is why Russia made it clear. Ukraine is a red line. And I do believe, knowing what I know, I do believe Russia will react forcefully to that. Because if they don't, they will lose credibility.
And you know what? I think, to go off of what you're saying, I think the Biden administration, I don't think Biden himself thinks any of this.
He doesn't know, poor guy.
But the Biden administration agrees with you, because when the Biden administration straight up was like, no, not only no to Ukraine joining NATO, but no plans. Yeah, it's going to happen someday, but there's no path for that to happen.
No, it won't.
So I think the Biden administration completely agrees with you.
That's what we call ambiguity.
Yeah.
American foreign policy tends to have that.
Yeah.
How long have we? Oh, we got to say thank you here. If you can see that name there. Can you see it?
It is Stupid Aussies PF.
I like that screen name. Thank you so much for your super
thank
sticker.
you.
Truly appreciate it. So it's the idea of the ambiguity has always been one of our, you look at it no further than the issue of Taiwan.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though we signed the 3 communiques regarding that, what we're saying versus what we do.
Right.
We say, oh, we recognize one China policy, but we go in behind and said, oh, let's send weapons to Taiwan and train them and all that stuff.
Well, and it's starting to come out, right? Like,
it
started to come out a couple of months ago. The chip manufacturing in Taiwan, because there are 2 things about Taiwan, right? There's its strategic position, right? Its strategic relationship with China, and the chip manufacturing.
Yeah.
And I remember I think it was a senator that came out and he was like, well, one of the things that's being considered in the committee is that we're going to blow up all the chip manufacturing so that China doesn't get it. And Taiwan was like, no, you're not.
It's ridiculous.
No, you're not going to blow up our chip manufacturing plants. But that's something that was actually apparently, according to this guy, apparently was actually being considered.
Yeah. Well, there are idiots in Washington. We'll consider that one.
Yeah, no joke.
Speaking of that, while I'm thinking about it, there is an American, I wish I would remember the name of the company, because China imposed restrictions on the certain elements for chip.
Yeah.
This company in the US lost money. So you know what they end up doing? They moved the entire operations to China.
Companies aren't going to lose money. Straight up. They're just not going to.
They're not. So
I mean, sometimes I wish they would for the better sake of the people in
humanity.
The world,
right.
Humanity, but companies are not built to lose money.
No. So this is why, just to wrap up this Canada portion of this conversation here before we switch to Asia. For Canada now, it's going to be because the US will, as I said, they have to get the green light. Canada cannot do anything independently without the approval of the US.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you think about it, that's just how it always has been. Our neighbor to the north. I mean, even the crackdown by the Trudeau administration on demonstrators in Ottawa was given a green light by Washington too.
Yeah.
This is where everybody's wondering about where Canada's headed. So,
and that's a great question.
Yeah.
Because I think we really did see that in Canada, and one by one, their freedoms, their right to speech, their right to protest, you know, where is that going? A lot of people forget that during the pandemic years, free speech was absolutely squashed. And then one by one, all those things that people were, the speech that was quashed, that the government didn't want you to hear, and there's all this crackdown, one by one, a lot of those things showed up to be true.
Yeah.
Month after month, it was true. It's true. It's true. All the things that they were like, no, absolutely not. No. It's absolutely not true. It was true. And one by one, we started to see it happen. And one of those things was, you know, the fact that the protesters in Canada got squashed when it was their right to protest. That's part of what any free democratic country is founded on.
Well, funny enough that dictator Trudeau himself was saying, when you remember when there was the eruption of farmers in India, they were erupting against the government, they were demonstrating. And what did he say? Oh, you got to let them express themselves.
Well, apparently not his own
over
people.
There, but not here.
Apparently not here.
Yeah,
well, or there.
It really perplexes me to sort of think in terms of, I just wonder, what our Canadians are thinking right now. You know, here is the government is going to get dragged into, because anytime now you get involved in this NATO sphere, you're dragging your country into some unknown territories. I feel comfortable saying that I started to see NATO as a global threat. It is a threat to global security. Otherwise, why are they going to Asia for?
That's a great question. And I think what happened in Lithuania really actually speaks to the fact that that's true. If that wasn't true, David, I think they would have admitted Ukraine. But they know it's true.
They know.
They know it's true. And they know that they're pushing it too far. They know that, number one, I think a lot of people on the ground, real people like us, the support for that conflict is deteriorating. Not politically. Apparently, there's still a lot of support for it. But it's deteriorating publicly.
But the people that they are, even here for us in the US, that they are Ukrainian, they're brainwashed. They have no idea. They have no understanding of what the real issues are. I mean, you feel sorry for them. I mean, when you see ignorance scream loud, that they couldn't understand the dynamics, and you don't expect them to. Those people are dealing with daily life stuff. Do I have something to eat for dinner or not? What will I, let alone you ask them where Ukraine is, they won't even know where. So they're not going to be understanding this. So they've been brainwashed, whatever our government feed them, and unless you know what to look for as far as information. And this is where I see things going. So let's pivot to Asia.
Okay, so this is kind of a big deal. In fact, this is maybe one of the biggest. A lot's happened this week, okay?
A lot.
But this is one of the biggest ones. So apparently, China said to NATO, more or less, do not expand into Asia.
You're right. And do you know why? Let me say thank you to, I think it was somebody here. No, I missed it.
I do not know.
Okay.
But
I missed it.
sorry,
I'll show
David.
up. I'll show up. So you're absolutely correct. And why is that a big deal?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember what I always say. I do two things, usually, well, more than two, when it comes down to doing an analysis.
Oh, yeah, you do.
I always read the final communique.
Yeah.
I had a chance to read the final communique of NATO.
Yes.
What is the focus on? Actually, I wish I would have put it up here.
I have the final communique.
Well, because it was one particular aspect of it.
Okay.
And this one has to do with China is the threat.
Yes. So that's actually a very...
I have it right here in front of me.
Okay.
Let me share it with you guys. So this way.
You guys can see it.
Yes. Present. Share screen.
You got it?
Yes, I did. Right there. In response to the NATO summit communique declaring that, and I put this in quote, China poses a systemic challenge. Just that in itself speaks volume. Okay? That is the reason why China pushed back. The foreign ministry came forward and said, China, as a matter of fact, warning NATO. Now this one has two messages.
Yeah.
There are two messages in that. If China issue a warning, that tells you that the global order has shifted.
Yep.
That's one.
Yep.
The era of when China used to be very reserved is not there anymore. And second thing, that sends also another message that if China issued a warning, I am sure they can back that up.
Yep. So do you want me to show the full communique?
Yeah, let's do that.
So this is from NATO. Okay, so because this is really wild language, David. Let's see. Here it is. So this is the communique in itself, so you guys can see where this is from. So it's from NATO.
NATO, yeah.
All right, and it's number 23 specifically. Let me get back down to it. Would you like me to read this?
Sure.
The People's Republic of China's stated ambitions and coercive policies challenge our interests, security, and values. The PCR employs a broad range of political, economic, and military tools to increase its global footprint and project power while remaining opaque about its strategy, intention, and military buildup. The PRC's malicious hybrid and cyber operations and its confrontational rhetoric and disinformation target allies and harm alliance security. The PRC seeks to control key technological and industrial sectors, critical infrastructure, and strategic materials and supply chains. It uses its economic leverage to create strategic dependencies and enhance its influence. It strives to subvert the rules-based international order, including the space, cyber, and maritime domains.
That's bold. That's what I have to say to that. Because let me say thank you first before I even start commenting on that. Who's this person here?
Poyen. So Poyen is actually part of our course.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
you're in, Poyen.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you.
I didn't know Poyen was part of the course.
Yes. So Poyen is
by the
part
way,
of the course.
did you know about the course?
We have
briefly
a course
here
called No Nonsense Politics, and once a quarter we do you got it, David. Once a quarter we do like very small Zoom calls with you guys, and we answer questions with you guys directly. We spend, as long as you guys have questions for, and we talk to you guys directly. So our course is called No Nonsense Politics, And if you want to know more about it, go to geopoliticsinconflict.com/no nonsense.
Yeah,
and check it out. But Poyen, thank you for being here.
Yeah,
and thank you for the super sticker.
And we do have another course coming up soon, right?
We do. We have another course coming up that David is primarily going to be teaching, and it is about the U.S. government. So we have a lot of more or less lies on how the U.S. government is run. People know it does this. You do not have to be in the United States. You do not have to be an American for this to be relevant to you, because the U.S. government basically has been the hegemon for the majority of almost all of our lives. In fact, all of our lives in some cases, like in my case, for example. And it's shaped the course of how the world is right now. And the way that we have been taught that it shaped the world isn't how that actually happened. And so right now, a lot of that information has come out, and it informs what's going to happen in the future. And so if you guys are really interested in how the US government has actually shaped the world into how it is right now, not the textbook version.
No.
Right?
No.
But the real version that's starting to come out and has been coming out over the last few years. And so David is going to speak to that. And, if you really want to know what the US government is sort of headed towards in the future based on analysis, that course is for you. So we have a free newsletter. It's geopoliticsinconflict.com, and check it out. And the information about the government course is going to go out through that newsletter. So if you're interested in it, go sign up for the newsletter. It's 100% free, and it gives us the opportunity to have that sort of conversation with you guys.
Yeah.
So
that's your way of helping us out, because we are just us. That's it. Done. Okay.
We're looking to grow, though.
Yeah. So let me comment now on that to tell you how they use the term the violation of international order or international norm, which is a bull. I'm going to give 2 examples here. Why is that? And I get round up about this because I can see where those things are headed. There's 2 initiatives by the US. One of them is towards PNG, Papua New Guinea, and the other one with India. As a matter of fact, on the other channel, just released a video that's India stabbing China in the back. Yeah. Because India now is going to allow for the presence of a naval hub. Usually it starts like that.
Right.
What will be the purpose of a naval hub in India if it's not aimed at encircling China? Right. Okay, that's one. Second one, for PNG, Papua New Guinea, entered into an agreement with the United States last month, which was kept secret.
Yeah.
The document now, the relevant information about it came up to the public. Yeah. I talked about it before, and the idea of why Papua New Guinea all of a sudden surrendering its sovereignty.
Yeah.
They don't understand what are they getting into. Yeah. If they think the U.S. is going to share things with them, they're mistaken.
Right.
Again, what is the purpose of it? To encircle China, but for the PNG, it has another objective, is Indonesia.
Yeah.
They're aiming at Indonesia. Yeah. So you take these 2, put it in coordination with, or in context within the warning of China to NATO not to expand in Asia.
Yeah.
We all know NATO is going to open up an office in Japan.
Yeah.
What do you think that office is going to be for?
They say it's administrative.
Yeah, right.
It's for
you look at
papers.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's what it's going to be.
Around.
So you look at that. You look at the deal we cut with South Korea by deploying a nuclear sub.
Yeah.
You look at the 4 bases in Philippines, and you look at with Australia surrendering its sovereignty, let alone purchasing the nuclear submarines in the AUKUS deal. Then there is another hidden 2 other elements. One of them has to do with Germany sending its troops to Australia. Yeah. And the second one has to do with us training Taiwan behind closed doors. Yeah. All this. Then you add at the top, NATO expanding in Asia. You can see why China will have to issue a warning.
Yeah.
And I think if China wasn't sure about it, they would have not issued the warning.
Right.
So
Well, this is pretty clear.
It is.
I mean, this is. I mean, and it's number 23 up in here in this communique.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very clear. I mean, it's saying basically China is a huge threat.
Yeah. Well, it's because China. It's like I said last time,
Yeah.
and I usually don't like to repeat myself, but I'll say it.
Yeah.
It's because we don't have any strategy to deal with China because we couldn't compete. I mean, I looked at them just yesterday regarding space. Do you know why they put that term space there? It's because China launched a rocket based on methane, which means they beat SpaceX into that race. You don't hear much about it here in the US. NASA's not going to be talking about this. You know, using methane. That's how they launched the rocket.
Yeah.
I'm not an engineer. I have no clue about that stuff. I know basics.
Right.
We always send rockets based on fuel.
Yeah.
They are doing it with methane. You know, you look at the video we did about rare earth minerals.
Right.
Why is China now in Africa?
It's absolutely. It's the minerals, it's the resources, and it's the labor in Africa. You know, I want to put out there that we are saying this right now.
Yeah.
A lot of this is actually about the resources in Africa, and that Russia and China have large interests, especially China, have a large resource interests in Africa.
And they do have a good relationship with African countries.
Yeah.
So this is why most of them now moving into that direction of economics,
right,
ventures, projects, infrastructure, and even the currency.
Well, and even in this communique, David,
that's
what they speak to. They say the PRC employs a broad range of political, economic, and military tools. It's economic.
That's all it is.
If we're really looking at this, you know, military, political,
but this is
political, yes.
But this is again where that issue of why the US will launch those two projects, one in PNG, Papua New Guinea, and India. Because for India to accept this, that means they are stabbing all BRICS members in the back. Let alone India is also a member of the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It is odd, you know. I have nothing against India. I know I read some comments. I will use the term stupid. I don't like that term, but there were some stupid comments. Oh, you don't like India? No, it has nothing to do with that. I'm pointing out the shortfalls. Maybe India can embark on fixing that so their people can prosper. Indian people deserve a better life.
Absolutely.
But when you have a country swamped in poverty, living on a $2.15 and infrastructure that is non-existent over there, because you have only the elite in India benefiting, that's a problem. Let alone a country of 1.4 billion people.
Well, and what you're speaking to, David, unfortunately, and this is just fact, right? So one of my bridesmaids is from India in my wedding. And so I love it. I've been to India. I actually love India. I've been in Indian weddings. I love India. But the issue is their infrastructure isn't to a place that allows quality exports. And I think if you're looking at what one of the biggest issues, India has an infrastructure issue, a very serious one.
Oh, yeah.
And India has an export quality issue.
Yes.
And so when you don't produce the things of quality that the rest of the world wants, you have a very big problem. In all fairness to India, though, China used to have this problem too. Remember when the reputation for Chinese goods is that they were cheap and crappy and not very good? Those goods don't have that reputation anymore. Now our phones are made there. All of our stuff is made there, and there's a reputation for quality. But it didn't used to be that way. So I do think India can step it up, but it's not there right now.
Well, that's why when they like with the video we did.
Yeah.
There's the reason why we did that video. By the way, we won comparing China to India. That's ridiculous for anybody with logical thinking to think that the video we did was about comparing India. No, because the facts, the numbers speak for themselves.
Right.
You know, you got China here, you got India over here. Come on, let's be realistic.
Yeah.
All he was presenting the argument based on facts and numbers, and we'll let you, of course, reach your own conclusions for that. So, and this is where I see the big problem. India is running to a serious problem. They need to really think strategically about where they want to go.
Yeah, agreed.
But for the NATO part in Asia, where the big problem is now you got countries are watching what's going on in Ukraine. I'll give you 2 quick examples. Philippines and Taiwan. Taiwan is not a country. You know, it belongs to China. It's a what you call it, an island that is under the Chinese rule. I mean, historically, I'm speaking based on history.
Right.
You know, it belongs to China. That's the way I see it.
Well, and the U.S. used to acknowledge that, right? So the U.S. used to acknowledge.
Except we flip-flopping.
Right. But at one point, that was true that the U.S. did acknowledge that.
And we signed the 3 communique.
Yeah.
We signed the 3 communique regarding this particular issue that we acknowledge the one China policy.
Right.
So where I see the problem with NATO and why China issued the warning, because China is already thinking in terms, could Taiwan become the next Ukraine?
Then they should.
Yeah, and if it is, it's closer to home.
Yeah.
It's closer to China.
Yeah.
Which is problematic. So it will be the same arguments made in case of Japan.
Yeah.
Could certain areas of Japan, because why North Korea tested the ICBM yesterday? That's a response to the U.S. language per se.
Right.
This is why we never, and I know this for a fact, we never ever attempted to create tensions for North Korea, or even even conducting certain black ops. We couldn't even do that.
Yeah.
We couldn't.
Well, North Korea seems quite volatile. If I'm being honest, it seems very volatile.
It's because they don't bluff.
Right.
They
don't bluff, and I don't think that they have the same level of control and willpower.
Yes.
That I think Russia is showing.
Yeah. Well, it's because survival. The Kim family, whatever, it's all about survival. Why do you think they took out the Kim's half brother in Indonesia? Or in India or Malaysia, one of the airports.
Right.
They took him out.
Yeah. They're
do you know why?
Why?
Because he was a CIA asset.
Oh. Well. Although I think that's good, there's some spying that I'm glad that happens, right? We talk about the U.S. spying on other countries, but other countries are spying. Every country
it's the norm. There is nothing.
It is absolutely the norm.
Nothing.
And I'm very glad that there's a bunch of spying going on in certain circumstances. When it's spying on your own people and when it takes it to like an extreme, that there's a line there,
like what will happen for us here in the U.S.
Right. It's not just here in the U.S. There is sort of a surveillance state situation that's starting to happen in a lot of places in the world. So that to me is extreme.
Yeah.
But there's some spying that I'm really glad is happening. There are really volatile places in the world that I'm actually very glad we have spies in.
Well, maybe
we're paying attention to.
Maybe we should invite a spy for an interview.
Honestly,
I have some in mind.
I would love to do that. Would you guys love to hear from maybe it
has to be retired because the rule is their identity cannot.
The thing that I think is interesting about people in that type of position is that they actually have to be very clear on what is happening in the world. There's no real room for having emotions about,
no.
I feel that XYZ country is bad, or I feel that XYZ country is good. The people who I've heard who are retired assets, basically, who are retired, agents, always have that sense of this is the facts, this is the facts, this is the facts, this is the facts, the way that they can see them, right? Because nobody knows the true facts of anything, but they're interested in finding out the truth of situations. And I think that for us, all of us that are here, having that quality is really valuable, to take the emotionality out of the circumstance and take a look at what the facts are. And so, like, for example, this communique, this section of it is very aggressive language towards China. It's very aggressive. And I'm actually surprised that people are not talking about this more. This is very aggressive language.
And that's why I the way I see it rolling, is that the Asia, especially with the Taiwan issue, is going to be the next front for NATO.
Yeah.
That is why they are paving the way for that, paving the way for it.
Yeah.
You look at the history of NATO, how we got involved in conflicts, like in the Kosovo one, for example, you know, the Serbia and all that. You look at the Libya issue. That is the pattern. Is the pattern. And I really fear because in Asia theater, it's slightly different because they are the cultural, the social, the geography. It's completely different over there. And then it becomes the next question for that is then what will become the mission of NATO? You know, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. All of a sudden you are turning to a global alliance, or, you know, where are we going with this? You know, because one of the big concerns I have, and again, as geopolitical analyst, I think far ahead. And again, based on trends, seeing what's going on right now, I'm already asking the question, and I'll share it with you guys because I'd like to have your feedback also. Will NATO woo India into becoming a member?
That's a great question. Yeah.
Because if India is part of Quad, and at the same time in BRICS, and at the same time in ACO, what's next?
Right. It seems to be playing all the sides.
Yeah, and you can't. To those who say, I disagree with their external foreign affairs minister, John Sagar, when he said, well, it's based on multipolarity, India has to look for its own interests. I agree with that aspect, but not this way. You can't be playing, you know, both legs on both sides of the fence. But where do you stand? And how long can you hold it that way?
Right. That's, I think, ultimately the question.
And my big concern is once NATO, if, and this is a big if, because ASEAN is already pushing back. ASEAN already issued a statement 2 days ago condemning the US for announcing that we're going to be sending cluster bombs to Ukraine.
And that's a big problem. Do not send cluster
bombs. Cluster bombs is banned. By international regulation. It's banned.
Right.
So what does it tell? What does it say about us?
That's
breaking
really
all the norms or the rules. So where is based on what you read on the statement, the rule, international rule or rule of orders?
Right.
Where is it?
Right.
If we are doing this.
Right. And the cluster bombs is actually a very big piece of information, David, that, you know, that I think that we need to be paying attention to. That is absolutely wrong and not okay. Making the warfare more gruesome and terrible is not the answer.
No, it's not. And this is where I see why China has to do. I think China issued that warning. It's a strategic move. Strategic move because they are seeing where things are headed.
Well, how could they not, based on this? Based on the official communique that came out of NATO, right? That's what this is.
Yeah, but obviously Australia didn't.
I guess not.
You know, South Korea didn't. Japan is hunky-dory happy about having an office of NATO. They have no idea what are they dragging their country into.
Right.
So this is where I see the problem. And the way to understand this, especially with NATO, and when you start seeing who's controlling NATO.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
When you look at who's controlling NATO and what type of talks or negotiations they are entering into. What am I referring to here? I'm referring to the mini summit that just took place yesterday after the conclusion of the NATO summit. And you know what happened? In Finland, between the US and the 5 Nordic states, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, and the last one is Sweden.
Okay.
They had a mini summit. Why will US be talking to Nordic state? They said they're talking about cooperation. That's not true. It's a lie. You know what they're talking about?
What?
Greenland.
Greenland, yes.
That's what it is.
Greenland
That's what it is.
Huge. Hear this. Greenland is huge and Africa is huge.
Those two topics, yes, that's what it is.
Topics, and people are not talking about them yet, but I bet those two situations, those two topics are going to really start to come to the forefront because you are absolutely right, Greenland. And we are going to do an episode on this because I am very passionate about what's happening in Greenland because of the trade route situation.
A lot of natural
Because
resources.
a lot of natural resources, and because it opens up trade routes.
Yeah.
As the sea ice melts,
Sucks the country that they will not be part of the BRI.
right? Well, not be part of the BRI, but it's the competition between the US and China, right? So
Yeah.
whoever secures those trade routes, whoever gets those natural resources, it's a leg up in the battle for continuing to be the hegemon.
Well, we know
the
who's
United States or China.
Yeah, but we know who's going to take over that, because China is already embarked on a project to build an icebreakers.
But the US has too. So this is like kind of a
Yeah.
hot
Yeah.
This is a hot area that people are not freaking talking about. It drives me crazy. It drives me crazy that we have these, really big distractions, right? Like whenever anything really serious is going on, we have massive distractions. So we had the submarine that went down to the Titanic and unfortunately imploded, like, God rest their souls. But, that was everywhere. That was everywhere while all this really important stuff is happening.
Yeah.
We actually have a very similar situation here in the United States because we have elections coming up.
Oh, yeah.
We have all of the Donald Trump stuff. We have all of the distraction. And it distracts away from the things that are really seriously happening in the world right now.
Yeah. And yet they want Biden to run again. That's problematic.
I don't know how.
Very problematic.
I don't know. Do you know how?
Nah, he needs to retire.
How is he going to debate?
He will do.
How is he going to debate?
It's not a laughing matter because dementia could happen to any of us. But it just sad that they are dragging the old man into all this instead of enjoying his golden years. And really, it's shame. Come here, doggy. Come here. Come here, buddy. There you are.
Hey.
No. There's someone give us a sticker here. Let me put it up for you. Right there.
Oh, stupid Aussie spam. Thank you very much.
Well, much appreciated. Much appreciated. So just to wrap up this Asia part, is because that's where the issue is. It's where I see the danger. But if India can be used, because here's the thing, India will hypothetically, this is a hypothetical. If NATO goes to Asia, which I don't foresee that happening, because Asians are not going to like that anyway. They already expressed that. But hypothetically, if they do, I can see how the US is going to do whatever at its power to convince India to become a member.
Well, and that might happen.
Which would be a big problem.
It's very interesting to see. Yeah, it's a big problem. But I think watching what happens with India over the next months.
I know. I was shocked. I was surprised, and because that's what they just did. It's literally stabbing the back for all the members of. I'm not saying they shouldn't look for their own interest. That's not what I'm saying.
They absolutely should.
They should.
Yeah.
But in foreign policy, you have to weigh. It's like what Europeans just did. How stupid they were by embarking on the sanctions willy-nilly because the US told them to. They don't realize the impact of it, and now they're paying the price. This is why Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban defies now the EU. As a matter of fact, I'm starting to feel that maybe he wants to ditch EU altogether and get out of it and go and join BRI.
Maybe. I mean, we're seeing
Macron
sort of waver in the whole China situation. We're starting to see some people sort of waver in those directions. But it does seem like this entire situation is really starting to heat up.
Well, even Macron himself is warning NATO not to expand in Asia. He's against, having an office in Japan.
Yeah.
We don't hear much about it. I read it from different sources to make sure. Yeah. And it was confirmed.
Yeah.
He is not in favor. But where France carry? What kind of weight France carries in NATO? None. None of them. Yeah. I mean, this Secretary General Stoltenberg, whatever he's hyping up the conflict is for his own interest because he wants to stay in power for another year. Yeah. His term is over.
His term was over
3 years.
Times ago.
No, he's extended for another year. Yeah. And you know who's intended on replacing him? Oh, not replacing him. I'll take this back. Who's wants to take that top spot?
No one that we want.
Yeah, you got two.
Yeah.
Two incompetent, two idiots, two liars.
Yeah.
It's Bojo
Who
and Vendela.
The UK didn't even want Bojo.
Well,
right?
Well, believe it or not, there is a conversation behind closed doors. His aim is for the Secretary General of NATO. And for Ursula, is also that's her aim.
Yeah.
This is why, get this, guys. This is why I always say, you have to look at the big picture. This is why the Prime Minister of Netherlands resigned, because the collapse of his government, not just because of the collapse, it's because they'll free up the spot for him to take over Ursula's job. Ursula will move into the NATO. It's all within.
Yep. Well, and people don't really understand the relationships that are happening behind the scenes.
The scenes.
They exist. And people are like, oh no, there's no way. There's no way these relationships could be happening behind the scenes. Everything that's happening is what we see.
Exactly.
Have you ever been inside a company? People inside of companies do this. They vie for power like this. They say, oh, well, this is my goal, is to have this job, is to have this role. People in families do this. This is a normal human behavior.
That's
and
true.
People act like, oh, it's some like crazy theory. This is normal human behavior. Look at it everywhere.
That's true.
Look at it everywhere. How many times have you talked to some, not you specifically, but all of us, you know, in a company like, oh, I want that person's job, or you know someone else is going for that person's job, or you know these two people are friends in the executive level, and so this is why this budget gets put this way. It happens all the time. It's completely normal and natural human behavior. And people are like, oh no, there's no way it can happen. It's literally normal.
Yeah. Well,
and
that's
it's
it.
wild to me that people could even think that it's not just a normal thing that humans are doing.
That's true. This is why I think for Asians, they're gonna have to, if any member of a government in Asian country, whatever, watching this video, you know, be careful.
Yeah.
That's what I can say, because I just can see where things are rolling, where the ball is going, and it won't be pretty in Asia, because there is a reason for also why NATO wants to go down there. It's because the wealth has already shifted from the west to the east.
I think it's
and
the
we
reason,
don't want, yes. Anytime, here is the rule, what we always have in our foreign policy toolbox. If we want to slow down a country or a region, all we need to do is create tensions. That's exactly what NATO's objective in Asia. It's not security. It's not the welfare of those countries. I look at the example of Philippines. You know how many? We're hoping that the new president, Marcos Jr., will do well by his people. Turns out to be another very weak person. Here is also the concern in Australia, why they are worried about Indonesia, because Indonesia's economy is going up. And this is why the US want closer. Because Papua New Guinea, I looked at the map. I had to educate myself about that part of the world. Very interesting dynamics. If you only know the history of what happened back in 14th, 15th century, between the Brits, the Germans, the French, and the Americans. We all went through there, especially the Brits, you know. And when Papua New Guinea was even Peter O'Neill, the former prime minister for Papua New Guinea, was against this deal. Because they knew what it means. And for India, for example, now to embark on this logistic hubs, naval logistic hubs, it ain't gonna be for just fueling. Before you know it, it will be a naval base there. And once a naval base there, Indians will have no say. Yes, they'll sign treaty, whatever. But what does it say to the rest of the other countries where India is a member of organizations like SCO and BRICS? This is where I see the danger of. There's now one question that is looming large in the community, at least among international security analysts. We're talking about real analysts. The question that is looming large is it time for the SCO and BRICS to reconsider India's membership there?
That's very possible.
Yeah, and if it is,
yeah.
what is the mechanism by which they're going to have to make it clear to India, either this or that?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think they're going to have to play it very strategically there also, because India is, when the Russian sanctions came about, India was like, no.
yeah.
And so India is contributing in some ways also.
Yeah.
So I do think that that's going to be a very interesting.
Yeah, but if it is contributing to that,
yeah,
you contribute on one end and destroying the other.
Absolutely.
Because how will China now interpret that?
Yeah.
Because if the aim is to encircle China,
that's what's happening, more or less.
Let alone India already said that no, there is no currency backed by gold. And the reason why they said that, because they want to push for rupees.
Right.
Well, who's going to be trading in rupees? Come on, let's be realistic here. Yeah.
I mean, Russia was.
Yeah, but here is the thing.
Even they were like, this is not going to work.
Because when Russia issued the statement, China contradicted that. I'm sorry, India contradicted that.
Yeah.
What does it say about the dynamics within? There are even those who are saying now, is India being used by the US to watch an eye on both the SCO and the BRICS?
Yeah,
and a lot of countries are asking, especially in BRICS, time to replace India with either Indonesia or Iran.
Yeah, there is, because Indonesia is actually a very large economy.
It is.
Also.
It is.
So, I mean, that's absolutely a fair.
It is, and they do have some of and they can contribute more. Now, don't get me wrong. India has one advantage: is a large market, but large market to sell product to, not to manufacture products. Right. So you are caught between a rock and a hard place.
Right.
If you are a CEO of a company, you're going to have to think about the bottom line, which is profit.
Right.
Okay. But if your product does not have a good quality in it, who's going to buy it?
Right. Well, and that's the issue, right?
Yeah.
The issue is the exports. And I mean, I've said that a lot of times, but
you're right.
It's true. You're looking at an economy that isn't producing high quality exports. And that's a really big problem, because how do you get your money as a country? How do you get money from outside of the country?
Yeah.
Exports.
Indeed. So, well, guys, we hope, actually, can we see if there is one question? At least one.
Yes.
We're way beyond time, but I like a good conversation, And just to remind you guys, for tomorrow, Scott Ritter will be here. I look forward to that conversation. So let's see if there is one question. If not, we'll...
So
there are too many.
David, I think we need to ask for questions earlier, because by the time...
Well, how about saving them for tomorrow?
Okay.
How about because tomorrow I intend to take about 2 or 3 questions. That's it. Okay. Tomorrow for Scott. So when Scott is here. So.
All right. Well, wait. Let's see. I don't know, guys. I'm sorry. There's too many chats. I can't see everything. Oh wait, we got one from Harry She, which I have seen you in the chat a bunch. So it's nice to see you again. Question: talking about Japan, Korea. Oh wait, let's put it on the screen. Talking about Japan, Korea, and Philippines, you failed to mention that they are not normal and sovereign countries because there are foreign troops on their soil. What can you expect from them?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
For them, in the case of the sovereignty, yes, to a degree, but you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct in your statements. Because there is now the tensions between Okinawa. Okinawans are not, the island itself is not even want to be called Okinawa, but we all know how the Japanese government took over that. Then in Philippines, with Philippines extending the 4 extra bases, South Korea, of course, got no. As a matter of fact, South Korea, this is how bad it is for the head of the government, Young Song, whatever that name is. Sorry, I couldn't remember. He wasn't even in the country, as Japan is about to dump the radioactive, which will impact South Korea right there. And he doesn't even care. He's not even in the country. Yeah. So it shows you right there so you're absolutely correct in your statements. So, well, guys, we look forward to seeing you next time. I'm sure you'll find this conversation very insightful. And as always, prepare yourself for changing world order. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.